Now, there's a lot of data that's coming out of the American election that I won't bore too many people with. But there's one thing in particular that really saved the Democrats yesterday. And it wasn't just about the number of women who were voting. It was Generation Z. Now, in an election where you don't have to vote, generally the assumption is young people, nah, who cares, let's go surfing. That's the assumption. But younger people are more activists than previous generations. They're really fired up and they're very, very lefty, all right? Now, little interesting thing that came out about some analysis of this particular generation of the first-time voters, or those that have only been voting in a couple of elections in Victoria, is that their preferred premier is Daniel Andrews by a margin of 60 to undecided 24 to 16% being Matthew Guy. Now, remember here, apart from anything else, this is the bloke who said you couldn't leave your room. And by this margin, they like him because he is, Dr. Woke, and therefore they're all in. Now, Jane, this is a big problem here because... Again, I don't want to slag people off because everyone has their right to their opinion, including the hard left young people, right? But very obviously, if you're trying to find a path in the next 3 years to 76 seats, if the Victorian Liberal Party is trying to find a way to get to a majority, we can't pretend that young people don't exist. And I think sort of just putting TikTok up's not going to help. But they are way lefter than the vast majority of the country is. So how the hell do you have 2 feet in this camp?
Well, look...
Please answer all the things at once.
All of those things at once. Look, I mean, it's been a tradition that younger people have tended to vote left and they tend to become more conservative as they get older and they have more responsibilities and they understand some of the implications, particularly the economic implications of the way that they vote. And this, I can't remember who it was that said it, but if you don't vote left when you're young, you haven't got a heart. If you do vote left when you're older, you haven't got a head, or something like that. But there is more to it than that. I think young people are far more switched on than they used to be. Now, obviously, they look at Dan Andrews and that's the only premier that they've known. He's been there for a really long time. But there's more to it than that. I actually think young people who are engaged are looking for a movement. They want to see a movement rather than a party. They don't like the idea of political parties. They want to be part of something bigger. And it really, the onus is on us as part of the political parties to create that. That's what Robert Menzies did. He created a movement back in the 1940s. Now it's up to us to recreate that movement. Now,
while this is not my policy prescription for the Liberal Party about how to solve all of its things, one of the things in America that's really interesting that drives some of the vote is they have this thing called ballot initiatives where basically to legalise pot in a state, you have to vote for it. So everyone turns up for that. And while they're there, might as hit the Ds all the way as they go, right? And again, not my policy prescription, but an idea, right? If you're the so-called freedom side of things, do you also have to talk about things like drug legalisation, different sex laws? Like you're just thinking about a whole different way of things than just freedom means small business, freedom means... Because clearly... and again, it's not a policy prescription, it's just, are there issues that we don't even begin to engage with that are so fundamental? Like if you're a renter, that's all you care about. You don't care about all the other stuff, but all the housing policy stuff is always around first home buyers, not renters.
True.
That's what I'm talking about. And
it's things like, vaping is a really good example. Now, I hate vaping. I just hate it. I think it's so uncool. Bogie and McCall didn't vape. They smoked, but
yes.
But that's in the past. But legalising vaping is something that actually appeals to young people that doesn't to older people, and it is a very small L liberal thing to do. And so there's those sorts of policies that we probably haven't really turned our mind to because of our natural conservatism.
Yeah.
And the age of our membership, we go, I'm not really sure I'm comfortable with that. But we do have to be consistent in our application.
I'm less inclined to embrace. I'm more inclined to stand up really hard against their wokeness. This is the cancellation generation. They need to be taught a lesson. And we've brainwashed them coming out of school with this stuff too. You're only going to get one side of the climate debate for a start. And Australia can change the temperature of the planet.
But you can hit them on woke and back in vaping, can't you?
Yeah, you can. And the problem is, if you tell them they're stupid, they're never going to vote for you. No one votes for somebody that tells them they're stupid.
Yeah, but we can have a lively debate and mount our arguments against their wokeness and their cancellation of our history and all the things that they emerged out of schools and were brainwashed about.
Well, this is my thing where, and again, I'm not going to bore everyone at this dinner party with this idea, right? But there's always sort of part of my strain of libertarianism that I always think might be worth part of the mix when we have the conversation about conservatism. And I know that, ideological purists go, well, the two aren't the same thing, Paul. But to most people sitting around, and we saw things with same-sex marriage, we'll see what's going to happen with the voice debate, all these things. You just got to work out that at some point in time, it's just always worth thinking, right? Whenever was peak you is great, but that was peak you. That's not peak someone else. And for somebody else, that might be 10 years too early, 10 years too late. That might be a whole bunch of different things. So you've got to think about, well, hang on, when you were peak you, whatever you think that was, well, there's somebody else at that age right now, and what's their expectation about peak? And again, I'm not saying knock down all the statues and burn all the flags, quite the opposite. But I'm just saying, once you start to think about that, then you start to work out a way to at least build some sort of a connection. But we will wait, watch and see. Till then, smoke if you got them, legally. All right, thank you very much, Jane. Thank you very much, Chris.